for joining us on the What Can You Do Right Now workshop, where we're helping you get relevant, practical information that you can use in your business today. 2 weeks ago, we had Jacqueline Sabrell with E Squared Business Concierge talking about ways to elevate your startup. So if you missed that workshop, a link to our YouTube channel will go out in the follow-up email. So please feel free to check that out. Today, I am super excited to have David Leary, Director of Accounting and Bookkeeping Evangelism at Melio. David worked. Hey.
Me.
David worked with Intuit for over 20 years. He's a co-founder of the Accounting Salon, founder of Sombrero Apps Company, and the co-host of the Cloud Accounting Podcast, which I'm sporting their shirt. And he's currently working with the awesome team at Melio. We use Melio in our firm, and for some of our clients, we've been super impressed with the service. So I'm really excited for David to be on and talk about this app and share it with as many people as we can. So with that, David, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Oh, thanks for having me, Anna. I appreciate it. So I didn't want to go through like a pitch deck. So Anna just asked me like, hey, what can we talk about? And I threw out some ideas, and Anna made a slide. So we'll talk about it. So, if you think about like traditional bill paying, right? You pretty much are going to write a paper check to somebody, and it's just not the best way to do it, right? There's fraud. Like people can steal your check. Your check number and routing numbers are on the check. So if anybody picks that up, they have the data. They can get money out of your account essentially, right? People get checks and they forget to cash them. They get busy, and it's crazy. Like now that I'm a business owner, I get it. Like I get a check and I sit it down, and then 3 days later, I'm like, oh, I probably should sign that and take a photo of it with my phone. Even though it's kind of convenient to photograph a check, it's still easy to just misplace them. Or they don't, now with the US Postal Service, and I have a poll I did to show kind of this, people aren't receiving their checks, or they're receiving them late, the paper checks, right? So I did do a super formal Twitter poll, you know how these go, but I did put this out there just to get a feeling, like in the last 12 weeks, if somebody sent their paper checks, like, is it making it? Is it not making it? Is it getting there successfully? And the results are kind of interesting if you go to the next slide. So had almost 3,500 people have voted on this, and only 40% of the people have had perfect check mailing occur. Everybody else has either had a check that's been late, a check that hasn't showed up in the last 12 weeks, or more than one check that has not shown up to a vendor. So that really results in late bill payment fees, et cetera, right? So like that's like taking the hassle and the security parts of paper checks away, just mailing them. Right now we have a new problem with the US Postal Service, right? Dealing with that. So, and then the other part of like not having like processes around your accounts payable, right? When you do paper checks. This is a perfect, did you guys hear about this story? This was probably, was it January? Maybe December. So anyways, no processes around the accounts payable. Somebody sent an email to her bookkeeper and said, hey, pay this vendor $380,000, and sent the bank information and the routing numbers in an email. And the bookkeeper said, okay, and just sent and wire transferred somebody $380,000. No controls over the system. And this is a funny story because I look at this and I'm like, so many products in the market could do this, and the cost versus the lost money just doesn't make sense. And it's a lot of separation duties. Like in theory, you'd want, if you have one person taking your bill, determining if it's a valid bill, then putting that in the accounting system, then somebody else creating the bill payment, right? Scheduling the bill payment. And then you'd have somebody else who approves the money before it finally goes out the door, right? You just want that separation of duties. But they're the same person who basically entered the bill, approved the bill, and sent the money just on a fake email. That's all it took for her to move $380,000 out the door. Now, I know, my understanding is she's well connected. The bank was able to retrieve her money, but I'm sure any of you that are small business owners, the bank is probably not going to do any favors, right? If something like this happened to you, you're probably not going to be able to track it down and get it back. And I think she got it back fast, in like 5 days. The ACH, think about that, takes 3 days to send ACH. And I think she got her money back in like 5 days. So, it's nice to be well connected, I guess. But it's a super thing that could have been solved with many products, including Melio. So what can you do to avoid fraud? I think I talked about a little bit about that. You just have to implement processes and systems. And I think you have the next slide that has a little bit more on that, right? Yeah. So when you think about the systems, right, you have records that are streamlined, searchable, you can find, they're auditable, right? It's very clear who entered the bill, who paid the bill. And now a lot of the apps and the banks have some insight of the movement of the money, almost like when you order something from Amazon and you can see that, hey, it's on this truck and it left this facility and now it's in the next truck. Now it's in your neighborhood. And I think Amazon's that good now, right? They tell you when it's in your neighborhood, right? And it's about to be delivered. So think about that with payments. Like if you send a check in the mail, you just have no clue. There's no visibility into that check. But with electronic bill pay, you can watch that along the way. Obviously reduces waste. There's no paper you have to deal with. You don't have to get printer ink. You don't have to. I mean, I think now with laser printers, you don't have to do all that adjusting to make sure it prints in the right spots on the check. You're not wasting check stock. You can pay on the go. So this is interesting, like with Melio, for example. You might be at a vendor and they need you to pay right then. And you don't have checks with you. You could do an online payment and then show them, hey, it's on its way. And they'll just open up their phone and they'll see the email, saying the money's on the way, right? So you can pay when you're out and about. And then choosing how you want to pay. Like before, you're at the mercy kind of the vendor, right? And the vendor says, I only take credit cards or I only take checks. You have to pay them the way they want to be paid. With online bill payment, now, especially with Melio, you can choose how you want to be paid. You can pay with a credit card. You can pay with a bank transfer. And the vendor can choose to be paid through an ACH. They can choose a paper check. They could add their debit card to be paid faster, right? So either side, because it's electronic, both sides get to be paid in the method they want to be paid in. So what is Melio? So essentially, it's easy to use B2B payments and receivables. And when I say easy to use, a lot of you probably use Venmo, PayPal, or Zelle, if you've used any of those services to move money around. In fact, the founders of Melio were at PayPal when PayPal bought Venmo, and they managed the engineering teams of the peer-to-peer payments division. So, but one of the things they fundamentally thought about is like, why can't businesses move money around as easy as individuals can, right? And the other tenet they thought about is not only should it be easy, the basic fundamental movement of the money should be free. And so just like in Venmo, you can send money for free to somebody else. Now, if you want it overnight, if you want it faster, if you want to use your credit card, there might be some fees or if you want it instantly, right, there's fees for how fast you move that money. But the basic tenet of moving the money back and forth is free. And Melio was founded on that same principle as well. So it's super easy to use and free when it comes to moving the money back and forth. So who is Melio for? Sorry, getting a drink here. So Melio essentially, if you think about where it fits in, on one part of the world, you kind of have this free and easy options to pay bills. We talked about printing paper checks, handwriting paper checks, using the bank website. Sure, it's free, but you got to go there and type it in twice. And then it's probably not in your accounting software. So now you have to type it in there. You have to pay your bookkeeper to type it into the bookkeeping software for you, right? And then you have way on the other extreme, there's highly complicated, highly expensive software that will manage your whole process. So you could put a bill in and maybe a manager and a second manager and a third department head needs to verify that that bill, it's okay to pay. Then it goes to a finance department who creates the payment. And then there's maybe a VP and a CFO and a controller that need to sign off. And then eventually the CEO has to say, yes, pay that bill. Super expensive software that's like enterprise level. It's not friendly. It's not easy to use. But really, most small businesses are over here on the left. You don't need all that complexity. You just need to move the money. But there's never been anything in the market in the last 8 to 10 years that really has filled this gap. And now that's where Melio Payments comes in, because Melio really figured out how to do it for free. And because Melio figured out how to do it for free, there's really no more excuses to use the free bank website or to use paper checks or to print checks out. You can just use Melio for all of your business needs, unless you're super big and complex. If you're a Fortune 500 company, great. Go use the expensive and complex solution. But if you're a small business owner and you just need some level of control, some level of process, but you also need the convenience and ease, you want to look at Melio for that. And it's pretty straightforward how it works. You're going to enter a bill. You can manually type a bill in. You could upload it. You could use the app on your phone and take a photo of a bill. The easiest way is to just have it automatically sync from your accounting software like QuickBooks and just come in. And then you can choose to pay your bill either with a credit card or with ACH, right? And then the vendor is going to get paid the way they want to be paid. They're going to either get a bank transfer or they're going to get a paper check mailed to them, right? So regardless of how you pay, they get paid. So it's enter a bill, pay a bill, vendor gets paid. And for steps 2 and 3 there, you get paid how you want to be paid, right? So the thing that makes Melio unique, and this is what essentially is what makes the business model work for Melio. Melio is the first company in this space to allow you to pay with a credit card. Now there's a fee for this, it's 2.9%, but this is kind of that model like in Evernote. I don't know if any of you use Evernote in your small business. As long as some people are paying for Evernote premium, everybody else gets to use Evernote for free. Kind of same. As long as some people pay some bills with credit cards because there's a fee, Melio is able to get that core tenet of basic bill paying available for free. But there's 3 use cases, I think, for paying with a credit card in Melio. One's going to be any of you who love points. You love your points, right? You want to get the American Express Black Card, whatever it might be, your motivation. You can take your bills, you can pay them all with your points card and get your points. Second use case is just paying for non-traditional items. So for example, rent. Your landlord is not going to let you pay your business rent with a credit card. But in Melio, you could pay it with your business credit card, and then your landlord's going to get a paper check or an ACH, right? So you can pay non-traditional items using Melio. I actually think the third use case is the most important. So, and it's really the ability to set your own terms with a vendor that maybe won't give you your own terms. And a great example of this would be you're a fine dining restaurant, COVID hits, you now have to become a takeout restaurant. But you don't have foam boxes and plastic forks. You're going to have to go buy those. So you go to the restaurant vendor, you tell them, I need to get foam boxes and plastic forks. The restaurant vendor is going to tell you, it's COVID. You got to pay cash. You're a restaurant. I can't give you credit. But at the same time, you're a restaurant owner. It's COVID times. You can't let go of your cash, right? So this solves for both sides of that equation. The business owner can then set their own terms by charging it with a credit card, right? And the vendor's going to get what they need right away, the check or the ACH deposit, and can give that restaurant over those plastic forks, those foam boxes. And then the restaurant owner, once they start doing takeout orders and have revenue, they can just pay their credit card bill. So it's a way to dictate your own terms when a vendor won't give you your own terms. It's a tool for that. And then on top, Melio, we talked about security a little bit. Melio does have payment approval workflows. So if Anna's my bookkeeper, and I can put a limit. Anna can pay any bill that's under $100, no workflow. But as soon as a bill is $101 or more, I'm going to get an email where I'm going to have to approve that payment before it goes out the door. So there's some level of controls. This is all Barbara from Shark Tank had to have. A little email on her phone where she said approve. If they had that process, Barbara would have said, we didn't do this work for $300,000. What is this? Right? We did not buy this or require this service. And she would have said decline on that. And that's like, it doesn't seem like much, but just a teeny little piece of security could have saved her a nightmare and fraud. And that fraud, like that happens all the time. But I actually stopped. I used to keep a Google search for the podcast, and I'd like keep track of bookkeeper fraud. And every day there was another bookkeeper fraud. I stopped watching it and reporting on it because it got to the point where it wasn't news anymore. So we can leave it open to questions. I'm actually surprised, Anna, how quiet you're being. Usually I thought we were going to a little bit more.
I can totally chime in on this. Yeah. So first of all, thanks for throwing all the bookkeepers under the bus with the fraud, like it's just us. No, I think that's such a great point though, because what that kind of good process does, it actually protects both sides. It not only protects that business owner, it protects that bookkeeper. If you have to approve it before it goes out the door, you're not worried about whether we're over here just, paying all the bills. And, we're not worried that you're going to say like, why are you taking all my money? Like we want good process on both sides because it creates trust. So, I'm going to push back on that book. No, there's plenty of stories. It's a big old bummer, but also why we need good systems and process.
Well, it's not even the bookkeeper causing the fraud. Sometimes the bookkeeper just didn't have a process, and like they get caught in it because they're basically enabling it because there was no process, and they don't even know they're enabling the fraud.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and not every bookkeeper is necessarily going to like think to themselves, this is kind of a weird ask, maybe I should verify it a different way than replying to this email. Maybe I'm going to like text them and be like, was that you that sent me that weird email? Even things like, I always get roped into being PTA treasurer, shockingly. I think you have the same scenario. And I've received emails as treasurer somebody asking me to buy iTunes gift cards from the president. And I'm like, nah, nice try.
How far did you fall for that though?
I replied at least once, like, wait, I don't think we're supposed to do that. Like, are you sure? Like, what is this for? And they're like, oh yeah, just leave them in my mailbox. And I texted her and I was like, by the way, I think they might know where you live because they want me to leave the iTunes gift cards in your mailbox. So
yeah,
I'm not going to do that. But yeah,
and it can happen to everybody. I actually got hit, and they were good enough where it moved from email to texting on my phone. I was able and that's when I was like, wait a second, and then I used a whole different channel because to contact the person they said they were being. I was like, oh, use Slack or just having a backdoor channel. But yeah, I fell for it deep enough to get to my phone, the gift card scam.
That's rough. Yeah. Well, and you don't want someone to have to come up with all these different ways to verify things. We want a process to make that verification just baked into the way that you do it. So it's not like, well, every time you get a bill, make sure you check in 5 different ways so we really know that that's acceptable. Like, nobody's got time for that. Like, there has to be a balance of good process and efficiency. So I love that. I love systems. So this is a great one. So do you have any other kind of thoughts on best practices? Like, have you kind of had like use cases of Melio where people are doing something a little bit different or just kind of a standard best practice?
I mean, definitely because of the credit cards, there's a lot of people that are paying their bills differently. And there's some people that they figure out the math, right? They like, oh, if I get this 1 points card, so the fee in Melio is 2.9%. So then some people find like, hey, if I get the right points card, that's a high enough percentage points. And, the fee for it is then tax deductible as well. And then maybe they get an early payment discount from a vendor. So some people have like been able to do all the math to come out ahead by paying with credit cards, or maybe that's worth the expense because they're like, I get to fly first class now, but if I had to buy all those first class tickets, it would have cost this much. So there's some people using Melio in little creative ways like that. But in general, I think it's just a lot of accountants and bookkeepers using the approvals to protect themselves and protect their client ultimately. And it's pretty straightforward to add clients and can invite their accountant and put a limit on them. And you just get that control because accountants don't want to be in charge of people's money, like the risk of that. And so it's much easier for the business owner to have that final say. And as far as it being simple, it's very similar to the olden days when the accountant or bookkeeper would just write all the checks all week. And then on the end of the week, the business owner would go and sign the checks that he or she wants to pay. Right? And it's kind of works the same way with Melio. It's super simple. You just schedule the bill payment and then the business owner just approves them. Right?
Yeah, I used to do that way back in the olden times when I used to go into a client's office. And then whenever it was time for my invoice, I made sure to put that check on the top. And I was like, just make sure you sign this one. I guess sign the rest or whatever. But like this one is like number one. I think another great kind of feature in this, besides like paying with credit cards, which kind of allows you to even out cash flow, especially in the COVID times where maybe you have, things that need to get paid right away to be able to continue to have a good relationship with that vendor. But maybe you're waiting on other people paying you. So you can kind of front load some of that and there's just a little bit more cost. But I mean, that's adorable compared to things like cabbage lines and other, short-term lending. And you're probably already in the habit of paying your credit card. So you'll probably figure that part out. But I love that it can also kind of keep good relationships with vendors. Like they're getting paid quickly and they're getting an email that they're getting paid. That's a really annoying thing on the bookkeeper accountant side is when vendors are asking when they're getting paid or they're CCing that business owner and asking when they're getting paid. And you're like, I scheduled the payment, but they don't know, if it takes 3 weeks to get in the mail because who knows when mail arrives, having that automation of like not just paying it, but letting them know that there's money coming just kind of makes everyone go like, okay, cool, we're good. So I think we had a question about kind of what the pricing looks like for Melio. So like, how does that work? I mean, like most apps have some kind of like a subscription you need to pay, or like a, per transaction rate, or what does that kind of look like for Melio?
So Melio is free. So like, let's say this again, Melio is free. So
sorry, I don't understand. Can you say that one more time?
I know, Melio is free. So there's no monthly subscription fees for this. You can add as many users as you want. If you have, 8 bookkeepers, you can invite all 8. There's no extra fees to invite users. But as long as if you're paying bills through ACH or paper check, free. Receiving payments, if you receive a payment from somebody and they do an ACH payment, it's free. The only time there's a fee is if you pay a bill with a credit card. But all the other features are free. The only time there's a fee is when there's credit card, and that's 2.9%.
That's bonkers. So when are you guys going out of business? Because no, that's fantastic, because I think that can be a real pain point. Is like, yeah, we should have good process, but the app to do it is so expensive, or we need to pay, this much more every time we add a user. So now we're like sharing logins, which defeats the whole purpose of having approvals and creating good process. So I think that's fantastic to just kind of remove that pain point.
Well, for a lot of small businesses, if they only have 10 to 12 payments a month, right? There's a small business. Like, they shouldn't have to buy software that maybe arguably costs more than their QuickBooks does a month, right? Just to add a little process to their workflows. And so, yeah, I think Melio has really figured out how to fill that gap that's really been in the market. And everybody should have an approval workflow. And everybody should have it for free. I mean, it's super logical. Like, you need to have it. And so there's really no excuses. I don't want to see any more articles about Barber anymore on CNN, right? Or Forbes magazine. Like,
well, I mean, I guess they could write articles, but hopefully not about fraud, about like, I don't know, nicer things or whatever.
It shouldn't happen anymore. Like, there's no excuse, because now you can't even say like it's too expensive to protect yourself. You can do it for free with Melio now. Yeah.
Well, especially someone at that level, like I want approval process around my like $200 bill going out. So like if we were paying hundreds of thousands of dollars of bills, I would definitely want some approval process around that. So do you have any other recommendations, kind of more broadly speaking, for, small business owners? Obviously Melio, but, kind of outside of that.
I mean, before I was at a company called Auto Entry. And so Auto Entry will take any paper data you have. So maybe you have paper bills, paper receipts, maybe you even have sales forms, right? Or you have vendor statements. And they'll take that, you just send it all to them, either through an email or you manually upload it. They'll take it and read all the data off of it and just take it and put it into QuickBooks for you, or the accounting system for you, where you don't have to type anything. And it's a little bit of a challenge. And what I mean by that is, like, I have my own small business now. I refuse to type any expenses into I put everything in Auto Entry. It comes into my QuickBooks. I will only type in QuickBooks when I'm sending out an invoice. If it's revenue generating, but if it's an expense, I have it go through the other processes automatically. I don't do any data entry of expenses into my accounting system at all. It's all done automatically. And so that's like, and that's a nice system too, that you can use on your own as a small business owner, or you can use it with a bookkeeper, because you could actually, the bookkeeper could just tell you, like, let's say you don't use QuickBooks, right? Or the accountant or bookkeeper's using QuickBooks. You can just upload your stuff to that app. And there's other apps like it. There's an app company called Receipt Bank. There's also another one called HubDoc. And you just send your data to those, and then your accountant can sync those down to QuickBooks, right? And then you don't even have to worry about QuickBooks. And then, so you could just upload your documents there, and then you could use Melio to approve, and your bookkeeper or accountant could do everything in between.
Yes, well, first of all, besides the automation, which I'm all about, besides removing data entry, which is lame, it's 2020. I also love that process kind of automates having that paper trail as well. You already have that supporting documentation with it. So then when you're getting into the approval of bills or like reviewing things. If you're like, wait, why do we have a bill for that vendor? You can actually look at a copy of it without having to go track it down either on paper or, you know, in some like file in Google Drive or Dropbox or something. You have that source documentation right there as part of that whole process. So you're really eliminating a couple of steps in it, not just the data entry, which I love. So we did get a question in the chat. So are you saying that auto entry is less work than sending bills to QBO?
I wouldn't say it's less work, because QBO now will, for almost a year now, I think you could be able to send them a picture of a receipt. And they were able to scan that. But now I think QBO has now added the ability to do bills. I don't know to what detail level. And I think that's going to be the bigger difference. I'm not sure QBO does it as deep as something like auto entry does. Auto entry will do all the line items on the bill. They'll do it to classes and jobs and locations and all your items. They'll do it. They basically can really scan the whole bill. And I don't know if the bill scan that's built into QuickBooks yet has that depth of functionality. So it's not so much that it's any easier. It's more of an accuracy, I guess, right? If half the data you still have to manually type in, you know, arguably that's harder. So yes, maybe I am saying auto entry is easier. Maybe
we use Receipt Bank, so we're definitely kind of familiar with
similar,
that.
yeah,
that
similar
process.
functionality across both. Yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing about it is that my understanding is for like the QuickBooks receipts, like you have to be a certain level of user of QuickBooks, whereas you might have people in your organization that, you know, should submit receipts or maybe are helping with bills, but you don't necessarily want them as a user in QuickBooks. So a lot of times having that third party solution just for, you know, that piece of it that maybe you can open up more broadly because that person's just going to be submitting things. They don't need access to, you know, the full GL. I like that kind of segmentation of like, well, what are we trying to accomplish with this and who needs to have access to what? We had one more question in the chat. So if a check isn't deposited after 90 days, is it automatically voided and the funds returned if Melio sends a paper check to a vendor and they don't cash it?
Yes, but I think it's 45 days for us.
Oh, great.
Don't quote me on this, but I think
we're definitely quoting you on
this. It's a little
this.
faster. Don't tweet
David Leary said 45 days. Yeah, great. Because I know the bank bill pay does, and it's normally 90 days. Like if after 3 months that vendor didn't cash it, then they'll put it back. So that's 90
days is a long time for business, right? If you think that crosses an accounting period possibly. So yeah, usually 45 days is going to be, it's a little aggressive maybe on one hand, but at the same time, as a business owner, you probably want that aggressive. If you're in my personal finances, I don't care. Take 90 days. Like, take as long as you want. 180 days, right? Just take it, never cash it. But I think in a business, you need to have that verification. And Melio will let you know once it's been deposited as well. You'll get an email to say that check's been deposited. But yeah, after 45 days, it'll restart to get the process started again and let you know to reissue the check.
Perfect. And that's also usually a great verification because maybe you had the address wrong. Maybe they've moved offices. Like maybe this would always have needed to be resent, and just having that trigger a little faster. Again, it kind of keeps that good relationship with a vendor that you are actually intending to pay them. What is the turnaround time for those ACH payments? So if you're going ACH to ACH, do you know about how long that takes?
So the first time, because you know you're brand new and maybe the client you're sending the money, the vendor you're sending the money to is brand new, it's going to take 5 days to 6 days for ACH the very, very first time. But usually ACH is going to be 3 days. So for example, if you want the money to be in somebody's bank account on Friday, you need to send it on Tuesday by noon East Coast time so it gets through the system. Because really, if you think about ACH, you have your bank wasting a day, the customer's bank wasting a day. So really there's still a day in between. So it's really 3 days a lot of times. Now, if you use debit cards on both ends, you can get next day essentially, because it's going to pull it out instantly out of your bank account. The next day, instantly put it in their bank account. But then both sides need to add their bank account instead of their ACH numbers, right? So that will make it faster to do. Hopefully we will have instant payments one of these days. Like that's definitely some on the roadmap and something we talk about a lot doing is to have instant payments. But yeah, so that's, I guess I could talk about that for a moment. So you can hook up a lot of different payment methods. So like I have my business checking account, 2 business checking accounts connected. I've connected my business debit card. I've connected a personal credit card to Melio and a business credit card for Melio. So I can choose any of those 5 when I go to pay a bill, right? And depending on what, which one the money's in, et cetera.
Great. And then when you guys get to that point of instant payments, is that kind of like the speed of a wire transfer, or is that, do you know what does instant mean?
My understanding, like based on other, I think like Stripe and some of the bigger merchant and MasterCard and Visa, the way instant payments, and I think even the way QuickBooks has talked about it, it's instant, like as fast as Venmo, right? If I pay you some with Venmo, by the time you open up your phone, it's there, right? It's so, I guess when we say instant, we mean instant.
That's great. I think that's the direction things are heading. Although, like, as the, accounting professional, I'm like, whoa, let's make sure we've approved it first. But, I guess then it's like, once we approve it and we're ready to trigger it, then what's the holdup? Like, give them their money. So that's great.
And I think it's important for that for small businesses. I think I just saw a Jobber, which is like a field service app for like lawn mowing businesses and like, that's their big customer base. They're in Canada. Like, so half the year it's like lawnmower guys, and the other half of the year they're snowplow drivers. But, maybe they're handymen or whatever, right? But they take a job, and a lot of times they need to run and go buy things to do the job. And so they've worked with Stripe to do some sort of instant payment. So because if you're a handyman, you can't go spend $80 on a new plumbing supply thing for a customer out of your pocket. So this way the customer can pay, they get that money instantly, then they go spend it at Home Depot or wherever they need to spend it at. So like instant payments are definitely coming. You're going to see probably everywhere soon.
Yeah, I think that is the only paper check that I still write is to our gardeners. So I would really love if they could hop on Melio or some other app so that I can just look through the duplicates and be like, well, there's the one from this month and the one from last month, and then maybe occasionally the school asks for money. But that's about it. I mean, I love Melio because we don't have checks for our business account. That's not how we pay for things. But sometimes people want them. So like, I don't know. So it's I've been super impressed with it. I've definitely been impressed with how plug and play it is. I think that's been one of the things that it is not an app that requires a certification or an in-depth training video or anything. Like I queued it up, set our company up, and was ready to pay bills. Would you then recommend connecting a debit card rather than doing the ACH connection to be able to pay faster?
So I don't know about, if all you care about is speed, yes.
Okay.
Right? But you know how like debit cards and credit cards have different liability, right? Like if you have a credit card that gets stolen, you pretty much aren't liable for anything, right? But I think if you lose your debit card and somebody uses it up to a certain dollar amount, you're responsible for that, I think. If I'm just taking business out of it, like my understanding. So I think that there's, that'd be the big difference is the risk. But I think if all you care about is speed, hooking up your debit card, it's going to verify the account information faster, right? It's going to send the money faster.
Awesome. And then you don't have to use the Plaid connection if that isn't necessarily your favorite.
Yeah, or the micro deposits, which take, because if some people come in at the last minute, like if you sign up for Melio today because you want to pay bills tomorrow, you can use the micro deposits. By the time we put the micro deposits in your account, it's going to be Monday or Tuesday before you can verify your account and pay some bills. So if you're in a hurry, you're going to have to use your debit card or a credit card to go through that.
Totally. Awesome. Well, if people have more questions for you, I definitely wanted to pull up David's contact info so that you guys can reach out and find out more about Melio, more about best practices, more about the Cloud Accounting Podcast, if that is of interest to you, or any other questions that would be helpful. And then my contact info, if you want to geek out about anything accounting, we are definitely happy to help with that. And then our next workshop will be on September 3rd with my absolute favorite nerd in the whole world, Troy Reddy with Rackspace, and he is a cruise CTO, and he will be talking about password security management. We want to lock that down and have a really good process around password security. So we hope that you can join us then. Thank you again, David. This was a really great chat.
Thanks, everybody.